Well, hello, everybody. It is another lovely summer day, and I went for a walk this morning and thought a little bit about, what am I doing? I think it's good every once in a while to kind of reflect or reevaluate what you're doing with your time, what you're doing with your energy, that sort of thing. I've been contacted a couple of times by people who want to, for money, help me grow my semi-retirement channel or widen my retirement audience. And my reaction was like, is that what I'm doing? I mean, there are some things that are true about me. Am I semi-retired? I mean, that kind of feels like halfway pregnant, like you are or you aren't, you know? I mean, I still work. I don't work as much, but am I semi-retired? I am spending some savings so I can live comfortably. Is that retirement? So I don't know. I am over 50, so that's one thing that we might have in common, or we might not. I like to spend my time doing creative projects, which might be something we have in common, or not. I think the point of the channel is living intentionally. You know, whether you are over 50 or under 50, or you work full-time or part-time, I think the thing I want people to take away from this is the idea of living with an intention. It's real easy nowadays, especially, to just kind of coast. You know, maybe it's always been like that. I just think with social media and the internet and all of these streaming channels available to us, that there's just so many things that just sort of suck up our time. And you know, sometimes when you are a kid, your parents tell you what to do. Or if you are married, your spouse will have some input on how you spend your time. Probably. But lots of us just sort of coast. We just sort of take whatever gets thrown at us and call it good enough. And I don't want to be like that. I am coming up on 6 months since I decided to go part-time at my job. I'm also coming up on 15 years at my current job. So it's not like I hate what I do. I've definitely done it for a long time. I just thought I wanted more time to do some other things. And so now, 6 months later, kind of reevaluating again. And I've realized a couple things. One is, fortunately, I have not spent as much savings as I thought I was going to. I have gotten pretty good at saying no to going out and just being responsible. I've gotten better with food shopping. You know, I'm real intentional about what I'm going to eat from week to week. For the last couple of years, I've been going in for allergy shots. And recently, they closed down the clinic that I was going to, and there's another clinic that's 15 miles away, and their schedule just doesn't work with mine. So I decided to pause the allergy shots.
And I am feeling it this week.
I was having medium success with them. A lot of the itchiness went away and that sort of thing, but I would still wake up in the morning all kind of congested. After a while, they kind of expect the reaction from the shot to kind of go away, but every time I got a shot, it turned into a big welt and was real itchy. And so they were suggesting after a couple of years to retest and kind of start over. And so I decided to take a break from that. You can kind of hear it in my voice. It's a little dry. It's a little kind of unstable sounding to me. You might not notice. I notice it if I try to sing. What else? I've actually sold some paintings. I've been making these tiny little paintings, and I just list them on eBay for a couple of bucks, and people have bought a couple of them. Got a couple of new ones kind of in the works here. And as I was making these paintings, I started thinking about something. I started thinking about an artistic mantra. Why do I do the art I do? And I've always been a creative type. You know, when I was younger, I would draw and paint all the time. And in my 20s, I played in bands and I wrote music. But where I'm at now feels very different. And I don't know why exactly. When I was younger, I would paint and draw a lot of weird things, monsters and strange characters and things like that. And a lot of my early music was really loud and heavy and angry. And I think there's just a little bit of the youth tends to be a little bit rebellious, and so that just sort of comes with that territory. But I also think a lot of it is I wanted to be shocking. I wanted a reaction. I didn't really care if people liked it as long as it emoted something. But also secretly, I think I wanted people to like it. And in turn, like me. It sort of turned into a therapy thing here. But I stopped after a while. I stopped painting and drawing. I stopped making music. I was still doing creative things. I was writing and I was making videos. But those older mediums, I sort of put them aside. And now that I've started to revisit them, I have a really different perspective. I'm realizing that a lot of the art I'm making right now, I want it to be deeply personal and very authentic to who I am. Now, when I look at it, some of it's still kind of weird and creepy, but it's weird in a really kind of genuine way. A lot of these things I'm painting are sometimes places I've been, or they're sort of like memories of places I've been. Like not photorealistic or accurate, but just sort of the impression of what I remember. You know, being in the forest, or a big house by the ocean, or weird colored skies during a wildfire. And you know, selling some of these little pieces makes me kind of want to do bigger pieces. I really stalled out on music making this week for the same reason. I started looking at it and I was just like, this is not who I am anymore. So while it's kind of on the back burner, it's still definitely on the stove. I definitely want to make some more music, but I want to approach it differently or think about it differently. A lot of the music I've written was inspired by other things or really emulating other things. Most art is inspired by something else. You know, everything is a remix of something else. But when I really started thinking about that, I was like, what do I sound like? You know, I don't want to write somebody else's song. And so I've been thinking about that, and I haven't quite figured it out. But there's kind of this feeling, or like this shape of what it looks like. And that's kind of what I meant by an artistic mantra. Like, this is what I am. And I don't know, maybe that's a really tall order. But it's interesting, and I'm thinking a lot about it. I saw a video that was talking about tarot cards, and the guy said, when you read a book about tarot cards, they kind of tell you what they are supposed to mean. And what you're supposed to do after you sort of learn the meanings is get familiar with the symbols and the different numbers and different things like that so that you have an idea of what they all mean. But what this guy pointed out was that these books are basically telling you what they mean to somebody else. And there are some cards I think that I could look at and somebody else would look at and we would both feel a similar thing when we saw that image. You know, that is courage, that is sadness, etc., etc. But when you put all of that aside and you just start focusing on the cards and what they mean to you, that's kind of where the magic happens. Because then you're not just reciting a list of definitions, you're seeing how you feel about the situation. And that is really what it is all about, is sort of this intuitive psychology. Once you get to be my age, you have a fair amount of experience, and those experiences color a lot of the world and what you think about it. And having that as your definition makes it all much more personal and much more interesting. Still doing the card of the day thing where I look at a card and I sort of reflect on it and what does this mean and all that. And today's card was the Wheel of Fortune. It was a tarot card before Pat Sajak and Vanna White and all them. But the Wheel of Fortune kind of symbolizes a bunch of different things. You know, the idea of fortune, there's a couple of different meanings. One of them, of course, is like riches. He amassed a fortune. And then the other meaning is more like luck. You know, your fortune teller or your fortune cookie, things like that. And it's interesting that these two different definitions kind of get mixed together, because a lot of times people assume that those riches came from the luck. Those two things get kind of conflated. And sometimes there is just blind luck, where somebody stumbles into something and they get lucky. But a lot of times when people accomplish something, it's not luck, it is a lot of hard work. There's a quote somebody told me a long time ago, and I can't remember who said it originally, but the quote is basically that fortune favors the prepared mind. And the idea is just when an opportunity comes along, if you have made yourself ready for it, you can take advantage of it. And this applies in all different aspects of life. And so if you're unprepared, then things will pass you by or you'll miss opportunities. And I think that's a pretty healthy way to look at fortune. The other idea with the Wheel of Fortune is that some things come around and go around. And that's much more stuff that is out of your control. And that's a hard thing to be okay with. Some things are definitely within our control, some things aren't. There's also the idea with a wheel of fortune. With a wheel, the closer to the center you are, the less it impacts you. Whereas if you're off on the edge, you're really going to have to hang on to stay on there. So that's kind of been my week. Just thinking a lot about the why and less about the what. Looking back over these last 6 months, I've been pretty much a homebody. Spend a lot of time at home, working on projects, things like that. I do go for a walk every day and I'll sit out on my porch, that sort of thing. But I would like to be a little bit more outgoing. Last month, I took that trip to the Portland Art Museum. That was a really cool little field trip. I want to kind of do more of those. Just little treks to different places, check things out. There's some other things I've been thinking about. I want to drink more water. I kind of want to drink less alcohol. I've been working really hard on eating till I'm full and then putting the leftovers away rather than just finishing it. Just trying to be real intentional with it all. I do have some methods and some tactics for how I sort of stay organized with these things. Maybe we'll talk about that in a future episode. But I think that's it for this week. Please subscribe if you like this sort of content, and I'll see you next time.